Criminal Justice, Mainstream and Cross Currents, Chapter 11, The History and Control of Punishment. This is a narrated version of this PowerPoint presentation. The history and control of punishment. Societies construct folkways, norms, rules, and laws. Although science and technology have introduced new methods of punishing or correcting criminal behavior, widespread dissatisfaction exists about the humaneness of current procedures, as well as scant evidence that they are any more or less effective than those used in earlier times. Before there were prisons, ancient societies did not have a well-defined criminal justice system that dealt with those who violated the law. Before there were prisons, we had corporal punishment and economic punishment, torture, flogging, branding, mutilation, humiliation, and shock death. Economic punishment included the galley, workhouses, exile, and transportation. Prisons in America. Prison efforts have been aimed at making the institution more effective, more humane, and more palatable to the public. This includes control in the colonies, development of penitentiaries, age of reform, prison labor and public works, age of rehabilitation, and the retributive era. Control in the colonies included early penal institutions were under local control and with mixed types of offenders. The idea of incarceration as a sole punishment took time to develop. The Quakers in Pennsylvania suggested that incarceration and hard labor were preferable to corporal punishment. Pennsylvania's 1786 Penal Code allowed inmates to work on public projects while chained to cannonballs and dressed in brightly colored clothing. The Walnut Street Jail demonstrated all the shortcomings of early jails, such as housing men and women together. Used as a military prison in the Revolutionary War, it was converted in 1792 into the nation's first penitentiary. The first institution to resemble a modern penitentiary was Castle Island in Massachusetts, Boston Harbor. Development of the penitentiary, 1780 to 1860. In 1829, the state of Pennsylvania opened Eastern State Penitentiary, which was characterized by the separate and silent system. The Auburn Prison, opened in New York in 1870, eventually used the congregate and silent system. The Age of Reform from 1860 to 1900. European nations were experimenting with techniques designed to give inmates a better chance at succeeding, returning to free society on completing the sentence. The new emphasis on social reintegration was called the Irish system. The Irish system was based on Alexander Macauley's Marks of Commendation, Sir Walter Crofton Ticket of Leave, and Zulabon Brockway. Prison labor and public works, 1990 to 1930. The idea that work is healthy for both the inmate and society is as old as the prison. Work was deemed beneficial in three ways. 1. Work kept inmates occupied. 2. Work was rehabilitative. And 3. Inmates could offset incarceration cost. The oldest prison labor system is the public work system, in which inmates work on projects owned by the state. Today, the most visible example of public work projects are the crews that clean and maintain the rights of way on roads and highways. Age of Rehabilitation, 1930 to 1970. Rehabilitation became important because offenders were considered sick. Wickersham Commission prescribed reforms. Federal Bureau of Prison was established in 1930. Retributive era, 1970 to present. The events of the 1960s caused a number of changes in social institution. One change was the traditional hands-off policy of the courts. Other changes included determinate sentences, voluntary treatment, and the abolition of parole. Capital punishment. This extreme form of control is controversial, with individuals and groups voicing opinions on both sides of the issue. Figure 11.2, taken from your textbook, shows executions in the United States from 1930 to 2010 by year. Historical perspective on capital punishment. A common form of punishment, public spectacle, and torture was usually involved. Figure 11.1, taken from your textbook, shows executions by county from 2004 to 2009. The red circle represents the number of executions in the United States counties from 2004 to 2009. Capital punishment, supporting arguments, specific deterrence, general deterrence, and just desserts. Figure 11.3, taken from your textbook, average lapse time from sentence to execution in months from 1987 to 2010. Arguments against capital punishment include religious consideration, does not deter, unfair application, and violation of the Eighth Amendment's cruel and unusual punishment clause. Figure 11.4, taken from your textbook, shows inmates under sentence of death by race between 1968 and 2010. Is the death penalty dead? Several states have no death penalty. The Supreme Court upheld lethal injection as a form of administering the death penalty in Kentucky, and death penalty likely will continue to be challenged. Questions we might ask from this chapter: what types of punishment were used before prisons? What are some characteristics of early American penal institutions? And you might discuss some arguments for and against capital punishment. This concludes this narrated version of this chapter PowerPoint.